Well, hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment of Crossing Home. Thanks for joining. We're glad you're here. Hey, we're going to talk a little bit about David and Goliath today, and we're going to tie it into life at the end. And I was talking to my good buddy Ray Perryman on the phone the other day, and kind of inspired this message. We were talking about something else, and he said, "Hey, this reminds me about 1 Samuel and David." And I said, man, that's going to make a great crossing home. You're probably going to hear that come across here in the next couple weeks. But hey, let's dig into this. Everybody knows the story of David and Goliath and how David slayed Goliath with basically a slingshot and a rock. But let's dig into what happened in the background to this. And so David had been anointed by Samuel way early on, and there's another story that goes about that Samuel came to Jesse's house to anoint the next king, and he went through all the brothers, and David was with the sheep. That's a story for another time. But at this time, the Israelites were facing the Philistines in battle, and every morning they would come out and get in their ranks and go fight each other. And then out came Goliath, just roaring and cursing their God and their army. And they did this for 40 days. And the Israelite army let the world get into their minds and let Goliath absolutely scare them every day. And so nobody would go fight. And what Goliath wanted was for one of the Israelites to come down and fight him. And basically his decree was, if you win, we will all be your slaves. If we win, you will be our slaves. Well, nobody stepped up because everybody was absolutely terrified with the giant. And by the way, the reason they were scared of Goliath was over 9 feet tall. He wore like 125 pounds of bronze armor. And even the spearhead of his spear was over 15 pounds. So you can just imagine the mountain of guy that this was. But in comes David. So Jesse, his dad, calls him in from the field, from watching the sheep, and says, Here, take this roasted grain, these 10 loaves of bread, to your brothers. Check in on them and see how they are doing, and report back to me. And while you're there, take these 10 slices of cheese and take them to the captain of the army. So as David arrives, they're joining ranks for the morning, getting ready to go out and do their same ritual that they have done for the last 40 days. And as David checks his supplies into the supply person with the army, he runs out to meet his brothers to see how they are. Well, then at that time, Goliath comes out and roars, "Rah!" and just says all his stuff and basically curses them again. And David's like, who is this guy that's allowed to defy the army of God? See, David had God in him through and through and trusted God. Well, his brothers are like, why are you even talking about that? Why are you even here? And David's like, well, what have I done now? Just typically brotherly love. Well, they got back to Saul. Saul sent for David, and David appears before Saul. And David's like, don't worry about that guy. I'll fight him. And Saul's, no, that's ridiculous. And he's like, no, I'll fight him. And so, Saul was just like, okay, well, all right, whatever you want to do there, little buddy. And so before Saul lets David go back into to fight Goliath, he tries to put all this armor on him. And so David gets it all strapped on and takes a couple steps and is like, man, I can't do this. This is not me. I'm going to get back to that here in just a little bit. But as Goliath and as David walks out, Goliath is basically appalled. Why do you send this guy to fight me? Are you kidding me? Basically is what Goliath was saying. But listen to what David says as he's approaching battle with Goliath. He says, you come to me with a sword, a spear, a javelin. I come to you in the name of the Lord of Israel, the Lord of heavens, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you. Did he say today David will conquer you? Or did he say today the Lord will conquer you? So we know the rest of the story. David strikes Goliath in the middle of the head with a rock, kind of knocks him silly. And then David goes and grabs Goliath's own sword and beheads him, just like he said he was going to do before he went into battle. So here's a couple things that God gave me through this. David stayed authentic to who David was. David didn't try to be who Saul wanted him to be. David didn't try to be who his brothers wanted him to be. David stayed true to God. And the thing that hit me the most when Saul was trying to put all this armor onto David, Saul was trying to make David somebody he was not. And David recognized that, and the burdens and the pressures that Saul put on him with the, I know it's an analogy, with the armor. David walked out of it because he realized that wasn't him. That was not what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to be him. He was supposed to do what God called him to do, and he walked out without any fear because he knew God was behind him and fought Goliath. So David knew God. David, of course, had been anointed by Saul, and here's the takeaways. David claimed victory. He basically called his shot like Babe Ruth at the end. A little sports analogy there. But David claimed victory before he went out, and David knew if God was for him, who could be against him? So as we close today, I want to ask you a couple questions. What is your Goliath? Are you seeking God to overcome your obstacles? Or are you trying to overcome the obstacles by yourself? Because God has a plan for you. Because you're uniquely made, and his plan is unique for you. So don't let somebody else put their armor on you and drive you the way that they want you to go. Stay authentic to God's plan. And every time you have a Goliath in your life, be sure that you're seeking God. The Goliath could be sports, it could be anything. Goliath is just, we're using Goliath as an analogy today that everybody looks at and is in fear of because the world slips in and you forget that God is behind you. And if God is behind you, who could be against you? Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. We enjoy having you. We enjoy doing this for you. We love you guys. Go out and play for Jesus every day. Have a great week.